There is something quietly radical about sitting alone in a dark room, completely absorbed in a story where the characters are drawn, where the world operates on rules that have nothing to do with your mortgage or your inbox or the noise of ordinary life. You have probably done this, or you know someone who has. And if you have ever wondered why some people do not just watch anime occasionally but live inside it, carry it with them, build their entire identity around it, this video is for you. By the end of this, you will understand why the love of anime is not an escape from reality, but one of the most psychologically honest ways some people have ever learned to be human. Let us start with the thing nobody says out loud. There is a particular kind of loneliness that does not have a name in English. In Japanese, they call it kodawari in one context, or more poignantly, there is mono no aware, which roughly means the bittersweet awareness of impermanence. Anime fans tend to know these words. They seek them out. And that is not a coincidence. The people who love anime most deeply are often people who felt, from a very early age, that the emotional vocabulary available to them in their immediate world was simply not enough. The language around them was too thin for what they were feeling. This is the paradox we are going to sit with today. In a culture that increasingly celebrates self-expression, authenticity, and vulnerability, why are anime fans still so often treated as emotionally immature, socially stunted, or dangerously detached from reality? Why do we dismiss the very people who are, in many cases, engaging in one of the most sophisticated forms of emotional and philosophical exploration available in popular culture? The philosopher and novelist Iris Murdoch once wrote that, "The task of the moral philosopher is to help people see the world as it is. Not as we wish it were, not as the headlines tell us it is, but as it actually is, in all its complexity and contradiction." Anime, at its best, does exactly that. And the people drawn to it are often people hungry for exactly that kind of honesty. But the conventional response to this goes in exactly the wrong direction. The conventional response is to pathologize the interest, to call it obsession, to suggest that someone who watches anime for hours, who learns Japanese to understand the original dialogue, who organizes their social life around conventions and fan communities must be compensating for something, must be running away. The conventional frame is that reality is what matters, and anything too far from it is suspect. That framework makes the problem worse, not better, because it mistakes the symptom for the disease. It asks the wrong question. Instead of asking, "Why are you running from reality?" we should be asking, what is it about conventional reality that is failing these people so completely? So let us go deeper. Psychologists have a concept called parasocial relationships, which sounds clinical, but describes something almost everyone does. A parasocial relationship is the bond you form with a fictional character or a media personality, where you feel genuine emotional connection, genuine affection, even genuine grief when something happens to them. Even though that relationship is entirely one-sided, you know them, they do not know you. Researchers Don Horton and Richard Wohl first described this phenomenon back in 1956, and what they found was that these relationships are not pathological. They are functional. They serve a real psychological need. What is more interesting is who forms the strongest parasocial bonds. A study published in the journal Psychology of Popular Media found that people who experience higher levels of loneliness, social anxiety, or a sense that they do not belong in their immediate social environment are significantly more likely to form intense parasocial relationships with fictional characters. And here is the part that the conventional narrative misses entirely. This is not avoidance. For many people, this is practice. It is a safe environment to experience vulnerability, attachment, and loss without the catastrophic social stakes that those experiences carry in real life. Think of it this way. Imagine you have never learned to swim, and you are terrified of water. Throwing you into the deep end of the ocean is not therapy, but a shallow pool where you can practice the movements, Feel what buoyancy feels like. Rehearse the fear in a contained space that can build something real. Parasocial relationships and the emotional worlds of anime in particular function like that shallow pool for a significant number of people. The emotions are real. The practice is real. The growth is real. Only the risk is artificially lowered. Now here is where the psychology gets even more interesting. In the 1980s and 90s, psychologist Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi, who is pronounced roughly Csikszentmihalyi, developed his famous theory of flow. Flow is that state of complete absorption in a challenging activity where time disappears and you feel both capable and alive. It is the opposite of anxiety and the opposite of boredom. Csikszentmihalyi found that people in flow state are not just happy. They are at their most functional, most creative, most fully themselves. Anime watching, for devoted fans, reliably produces flow states. And I want to be careful here, because watching television passively does not produce flow, but active, engaged watching, where you are tracking complex storylines, interpreting visual symbolism, managing emotional investment across dozens of characters, predicting narrative arcs, arguing about thematic meaning in online communities afterward that is cognitively demanding in ways that look nothing like passive consumption. The anime fan curled up in their apartment is not vegetating. In many cases, they are doing something neurologically similar to what a chess player does when they are absorbed in a game. There is also a third piece of research worth sitting with here. Psychologist and author Dan McAdams developed what he calls narrative identity theory, which proposes that human beings do not experience their lives as a series of disconnected events. We experience our lives as stories. We are constantly, unconsciously, writing the story of who we are, what we have been through, what it means, where we are going, and the stories we consume, the ones we let inside, shape the narrative templates available to us. They teach us what kinds of stories are possible. Here is where this becomes uncomfortable. If the only stories available to you in your immediate culture feel too small, too narrow, too suffocating for the interior life you are actually living, you go looking. You look anywhere you can. And some people find what they are looking for in anime, which has, over the last 40 years, produced some of the most philosophically ambitious, emotionally nuanced, and thematically complex storytelling available in any medium. Not all of it. Plenty of it is shallow and escapist and fine, but the best of it, the works that keep getting referenced in academic philosophy papers and university humanities courses, those are doing something genuinely serious. Now, let us talk about the reframe, because I think we have been asking the wrong question about anime fandom all along. The question has always been framed as, is this healthy or unhealthy? And underneath that question is a kind of anxiety about authenticity. Are these relationships real? Are these emotions legitimate? Is this a real community or a substitute for one? Carl Jung, the Swiss psychiatrist who spent his life mapping the architecture of the unconscious, believed that the psyche communicates through image and story. He called these images archetypes, universal symbolic figures that appear across cultures and across time. The hero who descends into darkness and returns transformed. The wise old guide who appears at a moment of crisis. The shadow, which is the part of yourself you refuse to look at directly. Jung argued that engaging with these archetypal stories is not entertainment. It is psychology. It is how the unconscious processes experience and moves toward what he called individuation, the lifelong process of becoming more fully yourself. Anime, particularly in its more serious forms, is saturated with Jungian archetypes. Consider the genre of seinen, which is anime aimed at adult men, and you find works like Berserk, Vinland Saga, Monster, and Neon Genesis Evangelion that are essentially long explorations of shadow, trauma, and the terrifying difficulty of becoming a person. Evangelion, directed by Hideaki Anno and released in 1995, is so psychologically layered that it is regularly assigned in university psychology and philosophy courses. Ano has spoken openly about creating it while in the depths of clinical depression, and the show is, at its core, a dissection of what it feels like to be unable to connect with other people while desperately needing to. If a person watches that and feels seen in a way they have never felt seen before, what exactly are we suggesting they should do instead? Watch something more normal? Connect with people who have never once articulated an interiority as complex as the one this person is living with every day. Philosopher and author Erich Fromm made a distinction in his 1956 book, The Art of Loving, between two kinds of love. There is the love that clings, that possesses, that uses the beloved as a mirror for the self, and there is the love that reaches outward, that is genuinely interested in the other, that is generative and alive. Fromm argued that the ability to love anything well, a person, an idea, a work of art, requires a degree of genuine attention and genuine vulnerability. The deepest anime fans I have ever encountered or read about display exactly this quality with regard to the stories they love. They are not consuming them. They are attending to them. They are bringing their whole selves to the experience. They can tell you why a particular color palette shift in episode 12 of a show matters emotionally. They can argue about whether a character's decision in the final arc is psychologically consistent with what was established in the first season. They are doing the same thing a literary scholar does with a canonical text, applying sustained, genuine attention to something they believe is worth it. That is not immaturity. That is one of the defining activities of a cultivated mind. Now here is where it gets philosophically interesting, and where I want to bring in Albert Camus, who was not a psychologist, but who understood something essential about human beings and the stories we need. Camus argued in The Myth of Sisyphus that the fundamental question of philosophy is not what is true, or even what is good, but rather, why do we keep going? He called this the absurd, the collision between our deep need for meaning, for narrative, for reasons, and the universe's complete indifference to providing them. His answer was not despair. His answer was revolt. You keep going, not because the universe rewards you, but because you choose to. You create meaning rather than discover it. Many anime fans, particularly the ones whose love for the medium is most intense, are people who have felt the absurd very personally. People who grew up feeling that the narrative templates their culture offered them simply did not fit. Too narrow, too conventional, too indifferent to the specific shape of their inner life. And in anime, they found something that felt more honest. Not because anime is always realistic, it is often wildly unrealistic, but because it is emotionally honest in a way that a lot of Western popular media has historically struggled to be. It is willing to sit with depression, with grief, with the specific horror of feeling nothing, with the complexity of wanting connection and being terrified of it simultaneously. Viktor Frankl, the psychiatrist and Holocaust survivor who wrote Man's Search for Meaning, said that what human beings need above all else is not pleasure and not even happiness, but the sense that their suffering means something, that there is a thread connecting their experience to something larger. Anime, for the people who love it most, provides exactly that thread. It says, your specific kind of loneliness has been seen. Your specific kind of darkness has been mapped. You are not as alone in it as you thought. That is not escapism. That is meaning-making. And the distinction matters enormously. So, if you are someone who loves anime, or someone who loves anime, or someone who has spent years quietly judging people who love anime, here are some things worth sitting with. The first thing is this. Next time you notice a strong emotional response to something fictional, whether it is a character arc, a scene that makes you cry, a piece of music from a soundtrack, resist the instinct to dismiss it or be embarrassed by it. Sit with it for a moment and ask, what is this actually telling me? Strong emotional responses to fiction are not signs that you have confused fiction with reality. They are signs that the fiction has touched something real in you, something that was already there. The question is not, why am I crying over an animated character? But what does this response reveal about what I am actually carrying? That is not a soft question. That is the work of knowing yourself. The second thing is worth considering if you have ever felt defensive or ashamed about the depth of your investment in a fictional world. Erich Fromm said that the main task in life is to give birth to yourself, not to become what others expect, but to find what is genuinely alive in you and protect it. The shame around deep fandom is largely a social performance, a reflex trained into us by environments that did not know how to receive that depth. The shame is not information about you. It is information about the environment that taught you to feel it. You are allowed to love things deeply. That is not the problem. The third thing is for people who do use anime as pure avoidance, and I want to be honest that this exists. There is a difference between engaging deeply with a fictional world because it opens something in you, and hiding in it because the real world has become too frightening to face. If you notice that your relationship with anime or any form of fiction is contracting your world rather than expanding it, that is worth paying attention to. Not because fiction is bad, but because you deserve more than a life that is only safe when it is imaginary. The question to ask yourself honestly is this making me more capable of living or less? That question is not a judgment, it is an invitation. Here is what I keep coming back to when I think about the psychology of anime fandom. There is a concept in Japanese aesthetics called ma, which refers to the meaningful pause. The space between notes in music, the emptiness inside a bowl that makes it useful, the silence between words that gives them weight. Anime, at its finest, has an extraordinary relationship with ma. It is a medium that understands that what you do not show can be more powerful than what you do. That silence can carry more emotional weight than speech. That a character looking at the sky for 3 seconds can devastate you if the preceding episode has been built correctly. The people who love anime have often learned to sit with ma in their own lives. They have learned to tolerate ambiguity, to hold complexity, to resist the compulsion to resolve everything quickly and neatly. These are not small skills. These are the skills that psychologists and philosophers have been trying to teach human beings for centuries under different names. Aristotle called it practical wisdom. The Stoics called it equanimity. Jung called it holding the tension of opposites. Whatever you call it, it is the capacity to stay present in the face of uncertainty, and it is one of the most important things a human being can develop. And anime, of all unlikely places, has been teaching it to millions of people for decades. The writer and critic Susan Sontag once said that the only interesting answers are those that destroy the questions. I think that is what the best anime does. It does not answer the question of why life is hard. It does not tell you how to stop feeling lonely. It does not offer resolution. It destroys the premise that these things need to be fixed in order for your life to be worth living. It says, here is a character who is broken and luminous and trying and failing and trying again, and somehow that is beautiful, and somehow that is enough. That is what the people who love anime most deeply are reaching for, not escape. Affirmation. The affirmation that the interior life they are living, strange and complicated and difficult as it is worth the trouble of being alive for. The philosopher Simone Weil wrote that, attention is the rarest and purest form of generosity. And if that is true, then the anime fan who has watched a single series 4 times, who has read every piece of analysis written about it, who has spent hours in online forums arguing about what it means, is practicing one of the most generous acts available to a human being. They are paying attention, completely, to something they believe deserves it. That is something worth understanding, not dismissing. This conversation is really about the deeper question of why we need stories at all, and what it says about us when we find the ones that finally fit. If this is the kind of reflection you want more of, subscribing means you will not miss the next one. And I am genuinely curious. What is the story, the book, the film, the series that made you feel seen for the first time? The one that made you think, someone out there knows what this is like? I would love to read your answer in the comments.